In this video I'm going to tell you what I learned about ELF waves and microwaves and what I plan to do about it. Now the only good magnetic waves come from your body and the earth. That's why when you get away from all the man-made magnetic waves that are caused by all your wireless devices and you go outside, you feel a million times better because you're connecting with the earth, because your body is operating right around the exact frequency. The problem with man-made ELF waves, like the ones that are transmitted from the HARP towers, are that they operate on the same frequency as your body. And this is a problem because your body will get confused and think it's signals from your body when it's actually coming from an outside source. So that can interfere with your heart and, you know, just about anything in your body and cause huge problems. Now the other big problem with these ELF waves is they travel extremely long distances and they seem to be able to go through just about anything. That's why there's only, what, a half dozen HARP towers across the world and it can cover the entire globe because it's such a long wave frequency and it can go through metal and just about anything. Also, microwaves from your wireless devices and cell towers can become a huge problem because this electromagnetic radiation fills the sky. And as it goes through your walls and enters into your house, it can also get into it's conductive to metal. So for example, I have a box spring mattress like most people have, and that accumulates as the microwaves keep bombarding your house. It actually heats up the coils in your bed and goes up through the bed into you, and that's why a lot of these target individuals or just people in general are having problems sleeping and waking up in the middle of the night. And I'll show you like mine here, if I can get this going. See, mine has the coils, hundreds of huge coils on the bottom of my bed, as you can see here. And those heat up everything. And that's why I have problems sleeping at night, and you feel like, you know, slight burns every now and then. It's because of all the electromagnetic and microwave energy that builds up under your bed. Now if you're a targeted individual or even someone just concerned about your health and you can afford it, this is something called a radio frequency meter that you really can't do without. This meter is specifically designed for measuring microwaves from 200 megahertz to 8 gigahertz. So you're also going to want another meter that's just as important for measuring magnetic fields. This is a tri-field meter here. And see, if you go to electric, you can find your electric fields in your wall, like so. It'll tell you that you don't want to be standing next to a wall a lot, or you're going to be exposed to these magnetic fields. So you're going to want to stay at least a foot or so, if not more, away from the wall. So this is also really valuable. These are two things you're going to want to have. Now I'm going to show you how bad the electromagnetic waves are in my house. As you can see in the kitchen, it's ridiculously high, and there's a reason for that. It's because my next door neighbor has a cordless phone that's right up against his wall, and of course microwaves can go right through walls. So that's what this is picking up. You'll see this get really high, you know, to the top of the scale. Now this is my microwave tower of death that's located about 300 or so yards away from my house. This is what's responsible for probably keeping me up at night. A lot of times I'll wake up at like 3 a.m. on the nuts, and you get these little tingling, burning sensations when you're trying to sleep. So if I'm sitting at the table in the center of the deck, I'm going to be exposed to over 1 volt a meter on my own deck. So that's pretty bad. And also what I want you to pay attention to is there's an average listed in microwatts per meter, and then there's a volts per meter, which shows your peak of the microwaves. But this shows you the average. Now these are totally different units of measurement, but I'm going to show you the ratio here because I'm going to compare the radiation from the cell tower to the decked phone in my house, just to give you an example of how much more radiation the cell phone tower puts out than my phone. So I'm going to try to find an average of about 100 here. Except it's higher than that right here. Okay, so this is in the 100 range, and it's putting out 0.5 volts per meter. Now this is my cordless decked phone, which is known for giving off some of the highest constant levels of radiation for wireless devices in the home. And what I'm going to do here is put my meter right where it transmits. And notice I have some of the lowest readings in the house right here, so this should be a pretty accurate measurement. I'm going to plug this in. You'll notice instantly when it kicks in, it's way over the max of 6 volts a meter. And it seems like it's a high average, but let's go back here. Now remember that reading I gave you from the cell phone tower, that was around 100 microwatts and 0.5 volts a meter. Notice with this one, if I can get it here, okay, this is about what it was on the cell tower. Now it's reading 100 microwatts just like the cell tower was in microwatts per square meter, but it's nearly 3 times the voltage. So that tells you, now think about, put that in perspective. I'm only a couple feet away from this cordless phone that's giving off 1/3 of the radiation of what I'm getting from the cell tower, and the cell tower is about 300 yards away from my house. So that gives you an idea of how powerful those things are. Now this corner of the room might look like a NASA space station, but this is actually called Mylar. And this is really cheap way of shielding, and it does an excellent job of it. It reflects something like 90% of the heat that comes at it. So it's actually a good insulator too. And I'm going to prove to you that it works. See, most of this here is under 1 microwatt per square centimeter. Oh. And some of it's leaking through right now. I'm getting about an average of 2 microwatts per square centimeter. But now I'm going to open it up and look behind it. It's just hard to hold at the same time. Alright. And you can see, look how it shoots up. I'm actually not. Okay, so anyway, I'm getting about 16 under there. Close it up. It drops back down to 2. Now, while shielding with Mylar and tinfoil and stuff is a cheap, effective way to shield, obviously to the average person you're going to look insane when they come over to your house, so you don't really want to have all this for them to see. So the next one of the options I'm going to consider, it's an expensive one but it'll be well worth it in the long run, is to have something called electromagnetic paint that will cover my whole wall all the way down here, and it'll block most of the radiation. It'll block like 95% of all the stuff coming from the neighbors. And I could even do this wall here, and then they even have stuff that you can put over your windows. There's some kind of fabric you can put over that'll also block things out. So as long as you get the walls where most of the radiation is coming from, you can do a good job of blocking most of it. Now, this is the ground for my electricity in my house. Anyone that remotely knows anything about grounding is probably going to look at this right away and realize there's something wrong here with this picture. And there's two major problems here. The first one is that there's no reason for them to have ran the copper wire back through the house, back into the house, and then what they did is they drilled a hole through the concrete, and then the rod is stuck through the earth. But this is probably going to provide a really poor ground. Even though I do have an outlet tester and I tested on my outlets and it says I have a good ground, what it doesn't tell you though is that it might only be a 10% ground, and it might be a really poor ground, but all it registers is that it's grounded. And just think, if you get a massive lightning bolt outside and you have electricity running through this copper wire from the outside, and now not only is it passing through the insulation, which could catch on fire, but then it's also, all this could catch on fire, which could, burn the house down. But the other major problem about this is that if you're not getting a total 100% solid ground, you're going to end up with stray electricity in your house that's going to stay in your electrical wiring. And the obvious problem with this is that electricity is always searching for a ground to go into. And if you have stray electricity that's not reaching the earth and going through the ground, guess what? It's going to go through you. When you're walking around the house, with all the electrical wires that are around you and all the magnetic fields, when you're stepping on the ground, you're the path of least resistance, so it's going to find you and use you as a ground, since there's none other available. So you can see why this is a major problem.
Crank the music up.